and welcome back to the Fit for Business and Life podcast. The Fit for Business and Life podcast is brought to you in partnership with Sharp Fit for Life at the Business Body Network, improving performance and transforming busy and overwhelmed, overworked, overweight professionals, business owners, and consultants, along with their teams, to become fitter, happier, and more confident. The Fit for Business and Life podcast is all about sharing passion, knowledge, and expertise around business and personal performance. From our host, myself, Martin Sharp, a 30-year changemaker in businesses large and small, and Dominic Furness, a world traveller and life enthusiast, plus special guests sharing their know-how, experience in making changes in business and in themselves, featuring inspirational stories, insights, tips, and practical knowledge, bringing more healthier, happier, and higher achievement to your world.
Why not follow this podcast? We are live on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop us a like and a comment if you're feeling generous. We can answer any questions you want. We very much appreciate all your support.
So sit back and enjoy this episode of the Fit for Business and Life podcast, brought to you in partnership with Sharp Fit for Life and the Business Body Network.
Booyah. That was quite the panic, eh? Next time that might be a bit more dialed in for you.
I don't know. I think that'd work quite well. And, it's a good thing because, we're going to talk about monitoring. So we'll actually be able to see from with the responses to who actually listens to the whole of this podcast, whether that actually worked better or worse than the previous one.
Yeah, if we've got 15,000 comments, we know it worked pretty well.
Yeah, so let's see what happens there. Are you aiming for 15,000 comments?
Maybe 1.5.
I'm going to say that's going to keep you busy.
Yeah.
But we're talking about monitoring, and specifically, let's look back again, keeping with this theme of this season, which is all around running. Let's talk about running monitoring. What would we monitor for running?
Well, I know you have probably plenty of answers to that, but I want to ask a personal question from me. How do you find tracking devices? This is something I'm interested in. So, you've got the Apple Watch, you've got an Aura Ring. You don't have the Beats headphones with the heart tracker in just yet. But yeah, how do you find using tracker devices when running?
Really good, actually. So,
and also and to add a question for a bit later on, what do they track?
Yeah, no, good questions there. I enjoy tracking with the various fitness devices. And I've tried a whole variety of things. I've tried things that you have to blow into to measure what's coming out of your mouth or in your lungs, etc. I've tried things that help, for example, with trying to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. The ones that I kind of use on a day-to-day basis that I find really useful are, like you said, the Oura Ring and the Apple Watch. That doesn't mean there aren't other brands available. There are, but these two I found personally for me kind of fits with my ecosystem and everything that's there, and just generally work. I know, for example, when I go running with other people, like for example with Gabe, he's got an incredibly sophisticated Garmin type of running watch, which he really likes. It's better for longer distances. It's very much just for running, really. It doesn't kind of give you any other kind of functionality, whereas the Apple Watch, it's just a multifunctional device. It just happens to have things in there that kind of are helpful for running. But you asked that kind of second follow-up question, which is what kind of things am I monitoring when I'm doing that?
Yeah, so I'm thinking off the rip that it might be things like VO2 max, heart rate. I know you track your sleep as well, which is important from following on from the last episode there of the rest and recovery period side of things. I'm sure there's more.
Yeah, so I think when I'm actually doing the running itself, so when I'm in the zone, let's say, the things that I'm kind of looking at are things such as my footfall cadence, my speed. So for example, I'll be looking also at the average speed, so how many minutes and seconds it takes per kilometer. I'll be looking at my heart rate, and those things kind of give me an indicator of how I'm doing. But I mean, it's like a secondary indicator, because the principal indicator when running is actually how I feel.
And that's definitely good. I was going to actually bring that up later. So yeah, that's good to follow up now.
Yes. So when I'm running to an effort, to actually how I feel, and then I use all the devices, etc., as a secondary view. Is what I'm feeling actually what my body's kind of recording? And sometimes, I mean, most of the time, it is actually it's spot on. So I know when I'm putting that little bit extra effort in. So, for example, when I'm doing a 5K speed, and I'm not a speed demon, I will. If anybody thinks, "Oh my god, you're a runner," kind of thing, I'm not. So my 5K pace will be something like about 5 minutes and 30 seconds per kilometer. Sometimes it gets down to about 5 minutes per kilometer when I'm feeling really good. Whereas, for example, if I go up to my 10K pace, I know that the feeling of that is it just feels a little bit easier when you go into that pace, but you're doing it for longer. And my time goes up as well. So that tends to be around about 6 minutes per kilometer.
But do you find your heart rate goes down in the period of the slower pace, longer run?
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, if you start to hit hills, etc., or any kind of incline and things, then you will see the heart rate kind of go up. Or if you're kind of doing a bit of a sprint finish, you see your heart rate go up. And yeah, you use this same kind of formula as anything. The very quick rule of thumb is you take 200, you take your age away from 220, and that gives you what your maximum heart rate is. So my maximum heart rate should be about 171 beats per minute. And sometimes it hits that, and you're kind of thinking, okay, that's why I'm feeling a bit exhausted from it, and you know to kind of back off that at that level of there. But again, that it's a go for a feeling rather than necessarily go for what the numbers tell me.
Definitely. But as you say, like you may as well track if you can. Like if you got the money to invest in something like that. Because it'll be like a pedometer and everything too as well. Like not that these numbers like are crucial, but it's good for a backup and also just like curiosity, I suppose.
Oh,
Like I
absolutely.
have one too, right? But I have everything turned off. Like I use it to tell the time. But sometimes use a pedometer, but I don't really care about that either.
That's an expensive watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're absolutely right. I mean, and for me, especially it's like moving from doing half marathons to marathons. I think that's where I've studied a lot more of the numbers after the event. So, for example, we noticed straight away that I ran about 25 to 27 kilometers. I feel that massive slump. We talked about this, talked about the meals and nutrition side of things. So after the event, when we actually go through each of the runs that I've done, you can actually see, for example, what's happening with the heart rate at that point, what's happening with my cadence, what's happening with my stride length and things. And that kind of gives me an idea then of how my body's responding. And then as we've been adapting and changing the nutrition side, again, we've been able to track that and say, okay, well, actually, what's been then changed with regards to my heart rate, my cadence, my stride length, and things, and that's helped be able to then optimize it and say, okay, this is working for me. This we've seen that kind of improvement.
Have you found it useful for tracking your pace? Because, like, I guess traditionally you just kind of have to time it on a watch and be like, okay, I've made it this far in this amount of time, and probably make a note. But instead, you've got a live time update of content, like what your pace is. If it's dropping, does that make you be like, oh, I need to like pick it back up again? Like, do you find that helpful, or do you find it's a bit of a distraction?
Yeah, no, I do find it incredibly helpful for keeping that pace. And it again, the interesting thing is when I've been trying to push the pace. So, for example, when I've been doing things like the speed runs, the hill runs, the fartlek type runs, anything where I'm in training, because you think you're kind of doing it to a certain pace or a certain speed, but actually, sometimes you're not ever too sure.
Mm.
Whereas actually just double checking it quickly on the watch as you're kind of making that pace, oh, I need to just put that little bit more effort in, or I need to dial it back a little bit just to take that little bit effort on. Now, what I have found, it's quite an interesting one, is I've kind of got a natural pace, which is around about 6 minutes, 30 seconds up for the first like 25, 27 kilometers of a marathon. Then I drop down to about 7 minutes, 30 seconds going afterwards after I've kind of hit that kind of barrier. But I maintain it. It's almost like a natural rhythm my body's kind of got into. And that's been quite interesting as well, is so that I don't necessarily have to force myself to watch what's going on the watch. I can almost feel it in the body knows what it's kind of going to do, and then once you kind of hit that kind of groove, it just continues to go up until it needs to change, and you kind of hit that second groove.
Well, it's definitely a good discovery.
Yeah, no, definitely, and again, being able to look at the numbers afterwards and actually say this is the case of affairs is great. But then there's other numbers beyond kind of the apps and the gadgets, etc., that you can look at. So, for example, you look at how have you been training to plan? Which days have you done the training? What's the weather been like on those days? How did you feel when you did the training on those days? And again, looking for trends across your plan over weeks and months. help you identify what things are going well, what aren't going so well. And same with, for example, from your nutrition side. So again, plotting, when have you eaten according to your plan? And that, for example, was how I realized I wasn't actually bringing in enough calories because I was finding myself feeling more fatigued, more drawn out. It was taking longer to recover. And what we found is actually moving up to do like half marathons just before Christmas. We needed to increase the amount of calories going into the body, which makes perfect sense. You're doing more effort, right? But then being able to quantify that and say actually how many was it that you actually needed to be able to get that performance level we're looking for. It only came because we were tracking what was actually bringing into the body and then what was going out the body.
Yeah, as you've been speaking that stuff, I keep hearing you refer to how you feel a lot. Like, could you elaborate on like how the tracking measures affect like the feeling of yourself? I just keep picking up on the fact you keep saying you feel this, you feel that.
Yeah, so the tracking measures kind of, for me, it just gives us that second validation. So, for example, if it's like with the sleep, I mean, the Oura Ring, it's a great way of being able to say, how much sleep did I have that night? How did it think that I slept? And there's some days I will wake up and I'll think, oh my God, that was the worst night's sleep on the planet. I'll feel really tired. I'll feel groggy. It's like takes a while to get yourself back into the swing of things, and you look on the report as to what happened overnight, and it's saying, "Well done, you had a fantastic night's sleep." And you're thinking, "Really? Are you actually attached to the same body as I am?" And on other days, it gets it absolutely spot on. For example, you've had a disturbed night's sleep because of X or Y has kind of been going on. And you feel that grogginess in the morning. It's saying, "No, don't worry. It's just another day. You'll get through it." And you kind of think that's great. But then also you can look at the sleep cycles that you're in. So, for example, whether you're in like deep sleep, whether you're in like REM sleep or non-REM sleep, etc. And again, that kind of helps because you can start to understand, why do I feel the way I do in the morning? Actually, did I get enough REM sleep last night, or did I get enough deep sleep for that? 'Cause deep sleep's required for that muscular repair, etc. So that kind of really helps because then you're kind of thinking, okay, well, how can I adjust my sleep pattern? How can I set myself? What did I do the night before? So, for example, sometimes when I've kind of been working away, I've had to come back and I don't get back home until maybe half 10, 11, maybe even 12 o'clock at night sometimes. And therefore, and I have like the 5 or 6 hours sleep the next day. It's not really a surprise that my sleep's impacted and the figures, etc., show exactly that same effect. Because effectively I've come back from driving, which is a stressor, straight into the house, straight into bed, etc. So just like you were saying in the last episode about effectively you just crashing into bed, not necessarily being the best way, and you then won't have the best night's sleep, and that's exactly what happens there. Whereas actually the days when I do put that kind of hour in before bed, and I make sure I'm in a position where I'm putting the best possible preparation in to make sure I get the sleep, then that's when I can see the thing works because the measurements on the ring, the measurements that it's giving me back, and the assessment that it's giving me tells me that actually that effort was worth it.
So yeah, it sounds like you're using a hybrid of like how you feel and what the technology says to like back up your point. But to get back a bit to when you said sometimes you feel like you've had a terrible sleep, but it's telling you you've had a good sleep, and then sometimes you agree with it. How do you differentiate between like it feels a bit like a zodiac like sign or something where it's like you read it and it's gonna match in some way, then you kind of just like piece it together and you're like, okay, that makes sense. Or some days you're like, what a load of rubbish. You know what I mean? Does it feel a bit like that?
Yeah, I think I don't think it's quite as bad as that kind of idea of I've forgotten what they call it. It's where you have your star signs read and stuff.
Yeah,
Astrology, that was it. But
or
I don't
tarot
think.
cards or something like that.
Well,
But
for some.
astrology is the thing that I'm referring to right
Yeah.
now.
So for some people, that has a lot of meaning, has a lot of credence, and they guide their life based on these
Well,
things.
this is what I'm saying. Like you're kind of guiding your life based upon the stats
Mm.
from the watch and the ring, etc. Just how those people would guide their life from the cards. But it's like the same principle in a way that you're kind of like taking these stats, these results, these words, these like meaning, and like basically making it make sense to you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's where the difference being is I can bring that inner feeling that actually how do I feel like I performed? And for example, all the other kind of things that I've done the run up to it. So the different bits of training, the different bits of work, the different activities we've done as a family with friends, etc. How I've gone through the day, how I've performed when I've done my various different activities such as weightlifting, running, etc. How I've performed with regards to making sure I've eaten correctly at the right times and things. I can bring all that knowledge with it. So I don't just take the number on the watch or the number from the ring and say, this is 100% correct, etc.
So you're taking it with a pinch of salt, really.
I bring it with a rounded kind of viewpoint.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
And again, there's things in there like heart rate variability, which is usually a hot topic for many people, and it's one that I do track. So again, I'm looking at improving my heart rate variability, which means that I'm getting that improved rest. So again, that's kind of one of the numbers I will look at when I'm looking at the things to say, how was my body performing overnight when I was giving it the rest, or how, if I decided, for example, to take a couple of hours out and just relax, maybe it's just read a book, maybe it's just sit and just watch the sun or something, then how did my body perform then, and start to look over when's that happened. Has something else crept in during that period of time that caused it to maybe have more stress?
You're looking for little outliers. Right?
Yeah, I'm always looking for those
and the variability.
Yeah. So when it comes back down to the running side of it and thinking about all the things I'm monitoring for running, yes, I am monitoring specific things for the running side of it, but then I'm also considering that in the wider scheme of what's actually happening in my life.
So you're taking like a bit of a different lens, because you can change the focus point of a camera, right? And it'll like look at a different thing. Seems like a similar thing, just use a metaphor there.
Yeah, you're spot on there. So it's taking that more of a holistic view of everything rather than just taking a reductionist view of just the running part on its own.
Yeah, that's a very sensible strategy.
Yeah, I mean, you are one person, and at the end of the day, everything that happens to your life is everything that happens to your life.
Yeah, that is very true.
So it will have an impact. So trying to work out, for example, some of those things to say, okay, which bits are going to work is really going to be unique to yourself. So certainly from that running perspective, I do track things on the running side specifically. We've talked about, for example, cadence, stride, all those types of things. So do track things on the planning and the organizational side, and actually then thinking about how does it fit into the wider scheme of what I'm doing with my life as well.
That's a good way to do it.
Thank you very much. I will take that compliment.
You're very welcome.
It beats being called a dinosaur like you did the other day.
Yeah, I guess it does. Is there anything else, like you briefly touched on it earlier? I think we went off on a little bit of a tangent of like things to track outside of using like technology. So like tracking, you were saying like days in the calendar and stuff like that. Elaborate any more on the other things that you track that is non-technological, so we've done the technological bit, we've done the feeling piece. Like, is there anything else you track in terms of like, because obviously you run different for the running specifically. You do like long runs, short runs. Like, do you keep a backlog so you can look back on what you've done, or are you just constantly like focusing on the future and what's to come and not really worrying about like looking at that?
I keep a log of all of that. So I think we did kind of touch on it in the middle. So you're right to kind of bring it back up. So just like, for example, with the weight training or the resistance training we do, I make sure I understand, for example, what exercise I've performed, how much I've kind of lifted, what I kind of felt each of those days, where I kind of failed at on each of those days. And I'm trying to look at how I can create that amount of progression each time. And same with the running. So for the running, I keep a running log. Again, it shows, distance, times, what kind of training I was doing that day. Was it like a speed training, an interval training, etc.? And also then looking at, for example, the notes that I've put alongside it. So this goes back to the feeling side. So again, I'm looking for those trends. I'm trying to track those trends. But then that's part of my wider kind of calendar of things. Again, that fits into the what I'm doing each and every day around eating, sleeping, and again, just seeing where did things go well, where did not go so well.
Yeah, and for example, would you track like after having your fall in the training marathon? Like, would you track that you was injured at that point, and thereby your times might be a bit skewed? Like when you look back on it over like a larger sort of spreadsheet.
Yeah, definitely.
Or graph, let's say.
Yeah, so I track, for example, things like injuries, or for example, if you're feeling a bit under the weather, if you've got colds or flus, etc., or maybe cut myself or whatever's kind of happened, then that can have an impact. So I do track those type of things because your immune system is what's used to repair your body, and not only for when you've got an infection or a virus or something like that, but also then when you're doing things like your resistance training, when you're doing things like your running, it's the same thing that kind of repairs your muscles.
And it does definitely make it a lot harder. Like there was that week of resistance training when we had a pretty bad like flu or something, and I should have coloured the spreadsheet in red just to like ignore it, because I was like fighting night and day just to like be in there.
I think more like snot green would have been appropriate.
Yeah,
But anyway,
it
it's
was
pretty
bad.
grim.
Yeah, couldn't breathe or nothing. It was so ruthless.
Yeah, but then that's why on that kind of week I did say don't train, but you thought actually I wanted to train because for your mental health it was better to train than anything else.
Yeah, like it's just you get something going, I don't want to press the brakes. Like that's just how I operate, I suppose. And like the time, like I hurt my. No, it wasn't an injury. I just had like a cricked neck. Like I can't really claim that as an injury, but it was just going to take time to basically like get better. And like then hitting the gym with ridiculously light weights just to keep the routine dialed in. Like a bit of what we covered in past episodes about the importance of routine. It's too easy just to sack something off. If you're seriously injured, definitely stop, consult a doctor or something. But yeah, that was just my experience.
Yeah, I think.
But then you make sorry, and then I made a note on my resistance training notes to say like, I was injured, please ignore, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the kind of thing, is to just track everything that's going on. I mean, number one rule: anytime you have any kind of pain, is to stop, assess.
Stop and assess. Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
assess
what
what it is. Is this something, for example, that you've had before? Do you recognize it? Do you know what to do with it? If it is, then obviously you follow the pattern that you've done before in the past, if you know it's going to work for you moving forward. So in the last episode, or a couple of episodes ago, when I was talking about the injury, and Gabe was saying he's kind of seen this before, and we worked through it, and actually that was the right thing to do, that kind of context. But if you remember last year, when I did the same thing, I had the crick in the neck, and I continued to train thinking actually it's just a crick in the neck, and actually it turned out to be a nerve impingement. That took me out of being able to do resistance training for about it was 4 months.
Yeah, it was a long time. It was a bad stint.
So that was one of those occasions where actually I made the wrong call. I should have probably stopped earlier. And thankfully, having an absolutely amazing physio, so I'll give her a shout out there, was able to bring it back, and gave me exercises and ways to be able to retrain again afterwards, and repaired the kind of damage that I kind of put into it.
Yeah, so just adapt and move forward. That is like a good way to do it. And I do personally think there's like, at least in my experience, like two types of injuries. Like one that's like an actual injury you have to stop, and then others where it's just like a small impingement of like pain. Like pain normally means to stop, but sometimes an injury it's not an injury. It's a bit hard to. Like I've had like a rolled ankle for the past like 2 weeks now. It's not really got any better. It's not really got any worse. Like I can put any amount of load on it, it's fine. Like I can still like go climbing, jump off stuff, still skate every day. And it's just there. It's a niggle. It's a bit painful, like when I stretch and stuff. But overall, it doesn't really hurt. And then, as I say, like in certain positions, it just tweaks. And I think that's a different type of injury to say if you've actually rolled your ankle and you cannot put pressure on it.
Yeah, definitely. But then this might be the difference between what's a pain and an ache. Things that kind of just a bit of a dull ache, or you're just feeling a bit. You feel like you put the effort in. That's a different thing altogether. Whereas actually something where is a sharp acute pain, something that's actually something has gone wrong. That's when you should have it like checked out and just make sure that you can continue to train, or what are the kind of what things you're gonna have to take into consideration to continue to train if that's the case. Do it.
I guess the point I'm making is like listen to your body, and then you can like track how it's feeling. Like I know it's not got any worse, but like if you're not tracking it, you might just kind of like push it too far or something,
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because you can get used to pain as well. Like pain is such a weird thing. I think there could be many conversations about like pain, like in the fact that you can't be in pain at two places at one time. So it's like, where is the pain? Because it has to travel up like the same kind of like synapse on nervous system.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's taking the same pathways to get to your brain basically. So you can't really be like injured in 2 points at once. Where you can be injured, but you probably won't feel it. Well, I think you can 2 points, but maybe not a similar spot. I don't know. I should have learnt the science before I brought up this point.
There you go. Do a bit of homework before you actually start doing a
Once
podcast.
again, went off on a massive tangent.
Or a good tangent. I enjoyed
Yeah.
that tangent. And again, I think it brings value back into it. It's all about monitoring. It's all about, thinking about it, not just the numbers, but actually everything else that kind of goes with it. It's the numbers, it's the lifestyle, it's the activities, it's the feelings, especially, that actually all kind of come together. And if you can utilize all these to kind of give you a unified view of what your body's like, then you've got the best chance of actually making those best performance changes.
Most definitely.
And on that note, I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody for taking your time out to listen to this episode of the Fit for Business and Life podcast. The Fit for Business and Life podcast is brought to you in partnership with Sharp Fit for Life and the Business Body Network, keeping busy professionals and their teams becoming more healthier, happier, and more higher achieving in business and in life. If you'd like to join us as a guest or get in touch to know more about the topic we've covered here, then we'd love to hear from you. Simply email hello@sharpfitforlife.com. Once again, thank you for listening to the Fit for Business and Life podcast. The Fit for the Business and Life podcast is produced and presented by Wax Tie Limited. Copyright is applied.